Look, the boss is here. My husband and my mother-in-law mocked my promotion. I looked at the refrigerator. It was empty, even though I had filled it with groceries just yesterday. My husband went to sleep, making a deliberate show of it. The next morning, he woke up without a job, without money, and without a roof over his head. Sarah was already used to waking up 5 minutes before her alarm went off. It was as if an internal clock, tuned by 5 years of working as a secretary, never failed. The faint October dawn barely filtered through the curtains, and she was already wide awake, mentally reviewing the tasks of the day. From the kitchen came the shuffling of feet. Her mother-in-law, Patricia, as always, was the first to claim the territory, loudly clanking the dishes. Sarah sighed silently. 6 months of living with Patricia had turned into an endless war for control over the smallest household details. "Ryan, it is time to get up," she said, gently touching her husband's shoulder. He grunted in annoyance, pulling the blanket over his head. "Give me 5 more minutes." Sarah mentally counted to 10, an old psychological trick to keep from exploding. 5 years ago, when they got married, Ryan would have never answered her like that. Everything changed little by little, almost without her noticing, especially after his mother moved in with them. The first confrontation of the day awaited her in the kitchen. Patricia was sitting at the table with a cup of coffee. It was the exact same coffee that Sarah bought exclusively for herself. "The daughter-in-law has appeared," she said ironically, taking a sip from her mug. "I thought I would have to make breakfast myself. You and Ryan always sleep in and leave his mother with an empty stomach." Sarah stayed quiet and opened the fridge. The milk she had bought the day before was gone, along with half the cheese. Mentally calculating her budget until payday, she turned on the coffee maker. "Good morning, Mom," came Ryan's raspy voice from the hallway. He walked in, kissed his mother on the cheek, and dropped into a chair. "What is for breakfast?" "Pancakes," Sarah answered briefly, taking the pancake mix out of the cupboard. "Those bland pancakes again?" Ryan grumbled. "I am a man. I need real food, not some girly diet stuff." Patricia pressed her lips together, showing silent solidarity with her son. "Real food costs money, and payday is a week away." Sarah tried to speak calmly, though she was boiling inside. "My son needs strength to work. He is a foreman, not some office drone." Patricia raised her voice. "He supports this family, in case you forgot." "We support it together," Sarah muttered, serving the pancakes. "I work too." Ryan let out a scoff, exchanging a knowing look with his mother. This silent alliance against her was already a habit. "Sitting in an office on the phone is not work. It is a waste of time," the mother-in-law declared. "Ryan is at the construction site from dawn until dusk. In the dust, in the heat, managing people." "And what do you do, Sarah?" She did not get a chance to answer. Her cell phone ringing interrupted her. "Hello?" "Yes, Mr. Mitchell. Good morning. Of course, I will be there in 40 minutes. Her body instinctively straightened up at the sound of the company director's voice. Hanging up and looking at the time, she realized she would have to leave without breakfast. "The director needs me urgently." "I bet you messed up the paperwork," Patricia chimed in triumphantly. "Let us see if you do not get fired." "I did not mess up," Sarah replied calmly, pushing her untouched plate aside. "And if I get fired, the first thing we lose is my share of the mortgage payment. I remind you that I pay 1/3 of it every month." Ryan frowned. Money was the only argument that made him react. "All right, they will not fire you," he muttered, suddenly changing his tone. "You organize papers there. You are indispensable to them." Diamond Construction occupied 3 floors of a corporate center on the outskirts of the city. Sarah had worked there for 5 years. She had joined right after graduating. The secretary position did not require major skills, but it offered stability and a reasonable salary. It was there that she met Ryan, a young and ambitious foreman who used to drop by the office with reports. The romance blossomed quickly. Flowers, attention, compliments. Ryan seemed perfect, attentive, with a promising job, and no bad habits. They got married 6 months after meeting. Sarah did not pay much attention back then to how her future husband listened to his mother's every word. Patricia seemed like a kind woman, simply devoted to her only son. Everything changed when her father-in-law passed away. Patricia, left alone in a 3-bedroom house, suddenly decided she was afraid of living by herself. Ryan, without consulting his wife, invited his mother to move in with them. Just like that, their 2-bedroom apartment, bought with a mortgage, suddenly became way too small. At first, Sarah tried to get along. She cooked her mother-in-law's favorite meals, asked for her opinion, and listened without complaining to endless stories about how wonderful Ryan was as a child. But Patricia soon took over the role of the main woman of the house. She criticized the cleaning, resalted dishes that were already prepared, moved things around, and gave orders as if Sarah were a maid. Ryan watched this change in silence. Sometimes he awkwardly tried to mediate, but more often than not, he took his mother's side. She is older, she is lonely, she is having a hard time, he repeated like a mantra every time Sarah complained about his mother's latest outburst. Slowly, he too began to adopt the same dismissive attitude toward his wife. In the waiting area of the director's office, Sarah nervously smoothed her hair and straightened her blazer. Being called in at this hour was not a good sign. "Go ahead, Sarah." The director's secretary pointed to the door. "They are waiting for you." In the spacious office, besides Director Mitchell, were 2 other people: Amanda, the chief financial officer, and Evelyn, the head of human resources. Evelyn was a woman nearing retirement with a perpetually tired look. "Have a seat." Mr. Mitchell pointed to the empty chair. "We need to have a serious talk with you." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Were they going to fire her? Or had she really made a mistake? "Sarah." The director leaned back in his chair. "We have been watching your work for a while. 5 years at the company is not a short time." She intertwined her fingers under the table, bracing herself for the worst. "Evelyn has submitted her retirement request," the director continued, nodding toward the HR manager. "And we have unanimously decided to offer the position to you." Sarah froze, unable to believe what she was hearing. "You know the paperwork, the team, and you have a degree in the field," Amanda chimed in. "Plus, you have shown yourself to be responsible and disciplined." "But I am just a secretary," Sarah murmured, bewildered. "Absolutely not," the director smiled. "Over these years, you have performed the duties of an executive assistant and frequently filled in for the HR inspector. We are confident you can handle the role." "The salary will match the position," Amanda added, handing her a sheet of paper. "Here are the preliminary terms. There will also be quarterly bonuses based on the department's performance." Sarah looked at the numbers and could barely contain a gasp of surprise. The proposed amount was double her current salary, even higher than Ryan's. "I accept," she finally managed to say, feeling a wave of joy rush through her chest. "Excellent," Mr. Mitchell exclaimed, rubbing his hands together enthusiastically. "Evelyn will bring you up to speed, and in 2 weeks she will officially transfer her duties to you. We will process the promotion and the raise starting today." When Sarah left the office, she could barely feel her legs from the thrill of the emotion. A promotion. A real promotion to a management role with a salary she had never dreamed of. Now they could pay off the mortgage faster, do some remodeling, maybe save up for a new car instead of the old truck Ryan inherited from his dad. Evelyn congratulated her, giving her a gentle pat on the shoulder. "Do not let me down, kiddo. I vouched for you." "Thank you," she replied sincerely. "I will do my absolute best." The rest of the day passed like a dream. Sarah tried to focus, but her mind kept wandering back to the change that awaited her. What would Ryan say? Would he be happy? This was the chance for their family to reach a better standard of living. At the end of the workday, she decided to stop by the grocery store. Tonight had to be special. She had to celebrate the promotion with a festive dinner. Sarah picked out the best: fresh shrimp, prime beef for grilling, a bottle of California Cabernet, strawberries for dessert, and a chocolate cake. While paying at the register, she realized with surprise that, for the first time in a long time, she was not counting every single cent. She did not have to cut corners before payday. It was time to get used to a new life. On her way home, Sarah imagined how happy her husband and mother-in-law would be. Sure, Patricia might drop some venomous comment, but even she would have to acknowledge the importance of such a career leap. And Ryan had always been proud of his own achievements. Now, finally, there would be something to be proud of in his wife, too. She carried the heavy bags up the stairs. The elevator was out of service again, but she just smiled at her own thoughts. Life was finally taking a turn for the better. Now everything would change. She opened the door with her key, trying not to make noise with the bags. "I wanted to surprise you. I am home," she announced cheerfully as she entered the living room. "I have incredible news." Ryan was sprawled on the recliner with a bottle of beer, not taking his eyes off the football game. Her mother-in-law, sitting on the sofa, was cracking nuts and dropping the shells straight onto the rug. It was a habit that always irritated Sarah. Seeing her walk in, Patricia dramatically rolled her eyes. "Look, the little boss is here," she sang out mockingly, brushing the shells onto the floor. "Lucy from your job called and spilled everything. Now your nose will definitely be stuck up in the ceiling." Sarah froze with the bags in her hands. Her enthusiasm crashed against a cold wall of mockery. Lucy, the finance department secretary and wife of one of the foremen, had already rushed to gossip about it. "I bought a special dinner," she said, disoriented, lifting the bags. "We could celebrate." Ryan scoffed without looking away from the screen. "And what did they name you? Head of accounting? Human resources?" "I am the new head of human resources," she replied, heading to the kitchen. "Little boss." Patricia snorted as if she had heard a joke. "A female director. That is like a cow on ice. It is funny to watch, but completely useless." Sarah placed the groceries on the table, trying to ignore the jabs. The new salary, the prospects, the respect of the team. It all seemed so important half an hour ago. Why couldn't the people closest to her share in her joy? "The salary will be double," she said, taking out the bottle of wine. "We can pay off the mortgage sooner." "Well, at least there is some benefit," Ryan grunted, appearing in the kitchen doorway. He scanned the groceries and whistled. "Quite the luxury, huh? And with whose money?" "They gave me an advance for the new position." She tried to smile. "Let us celebrate. I bought shrimp, your favorite." Ryan opened the package of seafood, grabbed a piece, and popped it into his mouth. "Tasty," he chewed, watching her closely. "But there is one thing I do not get. How did you, with your background, end up as the boss? Were there no other candidates?" "Evelyn recommended me," she replied quietly, while the wound inside her grew deeper. "She said I can handle the role." Patricia walked into the kitchen, guided like a radar toward anything appetizing. "Ah, I see we are having a feast today," she said, reaching for the cake. "Son, get the glasses, since your wife is feeling generous." "I wanted to set the table," Sarah tried to interject. "Have dinner together. I will prepare everything." "Do not make it so formal," Ryan interrupted her, opening the silverware drawer. "Mom is right. If we celebrate right." He grabbed the bottle of wine, the steak, and the bowl of shrimp. "The game is about to restart. Let us go to the living room." Patricia was already carrying the cake and strawberries to the living area. Sarah stood alone in the kitchen, watching her festive dinner turn into mere snacks in front of the TV. "Come on, little boss," Ryan yelled from the living room. "Or do you think you are too good for this now?" Sarah slowly sank into a chair. Something broke inside her. She had endured her husband's disdain and her mother-in-law's mockery for years. She had always hoped that one day she would prove her worth. And now, in the most important moment of her career, they could not even be happy for her. From the TV came the shouts of the commentators, mixing with the laughter of Ryan and Patricia. Sarah remained motionless, listening to her last hope of having a normal family crumble. At that moment, she did not yet know that the next morning she would find the refrigerator empty, and all the delicacies she had bought completely gone. She did not know that she would make phone calls that would change their lives, but she could already feel something new waking up inside her. A cold, calculating determination. Sarah stayed in the kitchen for a long time, alone, while the cheers of the fans and the clinking of glasses drifted from the living room. She mechanically stirred her cup with a spoon, staring at her own distorted reflection in the metal. The morning meeting flashed back into her mind. The faces of the directors, the certainty in their voices when speaking of her capability. True professionals, with years of experience, saw in her what her own husband and mother-in-law could not even notice. "Hey, what are you doing just standing there?" Ryan's head appeared in the doorway, his face flushed from the wine. "Our team scored a touchdown, and you are acting sad in the kitchen." "I do not like football. You know that," Sarah replied quietly. "Well, that is your loss." Ryan leaned against the doorframe. "We are in there, celebrating your promotion with Mom. Come on. Are you really happy for me?" Sarah looked up, searching her husband's face for at least a glimmer of support. Ryan shrugged with a lack of interest. "Sure, why not? There will be more money." He drank straight from the bottle. "Though it is weird, honestly. A woman boss is not very serious. They probably just put you there until they find a real professional." "What do you mean real?" she asked, almost in a whisper. "Well, a guy with experience." Ryan spoke as if explaining something obvious to a child. "Everyone knows women do not know how to lead. You guys are too emotional." From the living room came Patricia's voice. "Ryan, come quick, it is a penalty." "Coming, Mom," he replied, tossing his wife an indifferent glance before heading back to the living room. Sarah was left alone again. Alone as always in that house, despite theoretically having a family. She stood up and began clearing the grocery bags like a robot. A strange calm was growing inside her, as if something essential had suddenly become clear. The morning started as usual. The shuffling of Patricia's slippers, the smell of the coffee that only Sarah drank, though her mother-in-law never hesitated to pour herself a cup too. Ryan was still asleep. He had a later shift. Sarah got up quietly and went to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator and froze. The shelves were empty. No shrimp, no steak, no strawberries. On the bottom shelf sat an empty cake box. In the trash can, crumpled wrappers and the empty wine bottle. "Good morning, daughter-in-law." Patricia's voice sounded behind her, noticing the early fridge inspection. "Where is the food I bought yesterday?" Sarah turned to her. Her mother-in-law stirred the sugar in her mug with total calm. She was wearing a new robe Sarah had not seen before. Most likely another purchase made with their shared money. "My son got hungry in the middle of the night." She took a sip. "A man needs to eat well. Not everyone sits in warm offices like some people. Those groceries were for a special occasion." Sarah tried to speak calmly, even though she was seething, "and they were not cheap." "Bah, delicacies," Patricia scoffed. "You are the boss now. You are rich. You can just buy more. My son works under the hot sun. He is the provider. He has the right to eat well." "I work too," Sarah said evenly. "And right now, my salary is higher than your son's." Patricia's face tightened as if she had bitten into a lemon. "So, you are showing off now." She set her mug down on the table so hard that coffee splashed out. "Bragging about money, huh? One promotion and it goes straight to your head. And when are the kids coming? Tell me, or is your career more important?" Sarah exhaled slowly. That was Patricia's favorite argument, reminding her that she did not have children, as if it were entirely her fault. "Ryan and I decided to wait until we finish paying off the mortgage," she explained with her usual patience. "Otherwise, we will not be able to afford it." "Excuses," Patricia waved her hand. "Back in my day, people had kids in shacks and everything turned out fine. No, the truth is, you just prefer parading around offices. And now you think you are a big boss, and later, you will want me to think about grandkids." "Mom, what is all this yelling so early?" A sleepy Ryan appeared in the kitchen doorway in his boxers. "My head hurts." "Your wife." Patricia instantly switched to a tragic tone. "She thinks you and I are not worthy of eating shrimp and steak." Ryan scratched his beard, confused. "What?" "I bought food for a special dinner yesterday," Sarah explained with restraint. "Expensive groceries. And today I opened the fridge to find it empty. You two ate it all last night without even inviting me." Ryan yawned widely. "Oh, that. Mom and I got hungry after the game ended. Why wake you up? You were already asleep." "I was not asleep. I was in the bedroom working." Sarah pulled a folder of documents out of her bag. "Evelyn gave me the first batch of work. I have to get up to speed with my new duties." "Well, you should have stayed in there. Ryan opened the fridge and frowned when he saw it empty. Make some eggs since you are up. I am running late for work. Sarah felt something inside her snap. It was the same disdain as always. But now she viewed the situation through different eyes. The eyes of someone valued at her job, someone trusted with a management position. There are no eggs, she closed the fridge door. No milk either. You ate everything last night, so go to the store. Ryan yawned again. You are rich now, little boss. You go. I do not have time. Sarah checked her watch. I have an important meeting. Oh, those important meetings. Patricia rolled her eyes. Like you are the Secretary of State. And your husband is supposed to go to the construction site on an empty stomach? I would not be on an empty stomach if you guys had not eaten my share of the dinner, Sarah replied calmly. Ryan, I am going to take a shower. If you want, I can leave you some cash for breakfast. Ryan's face hardened. Leave money for me? He stood up straight with an offended look. You think I am a starving beggar? Just because you got a promotion, you are throwing bills around? I am a foreman. I have my own paycheck, which you mostly spend on beer with your friends after work, Sarah pointed out quietly. It is my money. Ryan raised his voice. I earned it, and I spend it however I want. And mine has to go entirely into the family budget. Sarah felt a sudden surge of bravery. While my food disappears, my coffee runs out without permission, and the household expenses always fall on me. Patricia took a step forward as if shielding her son. Do not raise your voice at my boy. He works like an ox to provide for the both of you. So what if he unwinds with his friends once in a while? That is sacred. A man needs to blow off steam. He blows off steam at least 3 times a week, Sarah looked at her firmly. And he spends a quarter of his paycheck doing it. Meanwhile, we have a mortgage and bills to pay. You are cheap, Ryan spat, counting pennies. If you do not want to feed your husband, just say it. What I want is equality, Sarah replied firmly. I want you to respect my work just as you respect yours. I want you to value my achievements, not mock them. Achievements, Ryan snorted. They promoted you to head of HR. Big deal, you just shuffle papers. Sarah looked at him in silence. She realized she was looking at a stranger, not the attentive young man who, 5 years ago, swore to love her for better or for worse. Now, this man was infuriated by her success, mocked her professional growth, and despised her work. You know, she said calmly, maybe you are right. Maybe my work is just shuffling papers. But these papers, she tapped the folder, decide people's futures, including yours. Ryan glared at her with contempt. And what is that supposed to mean? Nothing special. Sarah shrugged. Just a fact. The head of HR signs all employment contracts, monitors discipline, approves terminations, and also bonuses. Just papers, right? Patricia tensed upon hearing a new, unfamiliar tone in her daughter-in-law's voice. Are you threatening my son? She stepped forward, lifting her chin defiantly. How dare you? He is an indispensable worker at that company. 3 sites under his command. Nobody is indispensable, Patricia, Sarah answered quietly. Nobody, and you know that better than anyone. Her mother-in-law gasped as if she had been slapped. She understood the message. 6 months ago, she used to brag about being irreplaceable at the school where she taught for years. Then, suddenly, her retirement came, and she moved in with her son, claiming the loneliness after her husband's death was unbearable. But Sarah had found out through mutual acquaintances that Patricia had actually been asked to leave due to constant conflicts with colleagues and complaints from parents. I have to go, Sarah checked her watch. I do not want to be late for my first meeting as the boss. She walked past Ryan and Patricia, who were paralyzed by her words, and headed to the bathroom. Today, she would choose her outfit with special care. It was her first day with a new status. They might not respect her at home, but at work, they would know exactly who she was. The day at the office was intense to the limit. Evelyn took Sarah through all the areas of the department, showed her the management software, explained the document flow, and guided her through the key points of labor laws. The main thing you have to understand, the veteran said, leaning back in her chair, is that not all employees are the same. Some need a soft touch, others need strictness. especially the foremen. They think they are kings on the construction site. For them, paperwork does not exist. They are always delaying something, forgetting to sign, losing papers. Sarah could not help but think of Ryan. He also complained often about administrative paperwork. "And how do you deal with them?" she asked. Evelyn smiled mischievously. "Everyone has a weak spot. Some want a bonus, others want time off, others fear a negative report. Find the spot, and anyone becomes compliant." By the end of the day, Sarah's head was buzzing with so much information. She reviewed employee files, memorized the internal structure, vacation schedules, and training plans. Among the documents, she found a folder of disciplinary actions. She flipped through it absent-mindedly and stopped when she saw a familiar name. Ryan Miller, foreman of Sector 3. Tardiness, written warning, absence from post, observation, safety violation, severe penalty, conflict with a client, formal warning. Sarah turned the page slowly. More reports, more violations, all recent. Why had her husband never mentioned this? How was it possible that she, working in the same company, knew nothing? Interesting read. Evelyn peeked over her shoulder. "Ah, Miller, your husband, right?" Sarah nodded without looking up. "He is not the most disciplined," the woman sighed. "Good technician, yes. But Mr. Mitchell has already brought up firing him twice. I stopped him because of Ryan's experience, his years here, and also because of you. After all, you are family." Sarah looked up. "Because of me? Right." Evelyn sat on the edge of the desk. "Do you think we do not know how you live? This is a small town. Your mother-in-law taught for many years. Everyone remembers her, her temper too." Sarah felt her cheeks burn. Was her marriage the topic of conversation throughout the whole company? "Do not be embarrassed," Evelyn patted her shoulder. "Nobody blames you. In fact, they wonder how you put up with it. I would have started a revolution by now." "I was just trying to save my family," Sarah murmured. "It takes two to save a family, honey." Evelyn organized some papers. "Not just one. Go on, head home. We will continue tomorrow." The drive back was a mental whirlwind. Ryan's penalties, Evelyn's words, the morning humiliation, the lack of respect. She parked in front of the building and sat in her car for a while without moving. What awaited her behind that door? More mockery? More demands? Or maybe, just maybe, a slight change? Opening the apartment door, Sarah understood immediately. No miracle had occurred. From the living room came laughter and the clinking of glasses. She walked carefully down the hallway and peeked in. Ryan and Patricia were sitting around the coffee table, which was covered in snacks and bottles. With them were two other people. Ben, Ryan's coworker from the site, and his wife Lucy, the same Lucy from the finance department who had leaked the news of the promotion. "Look, speak of the devil." Ryan raised his glass. "We are toasting to your promotion." "Without me?" Sarah asked quietly, observing the cheerful group. "You are always busy," Patricia shrugged. "Meetings, paperwork, we were not going to wait." Lucy let out a giggle, covering her mouth with her hand. "Congratulations, Sarah. It was a total shock. We all thought they would pick Nathan from planning. He actually has director experience." "Management decided otherwise," Sarah replied dryly, feeling the venom behind every word. "Sit down. Have a drink with us." Ryan patted the sofa next to him. "We were just talking about how tough it will be for a woman to handle such a big position." Ben, a large, red-faced man, let out a loud laugh. "Especially having so many men underneath you. Tell me, Sarah, now that you are in charge of HR, how do you plan to control the foremen? Otherwise, they are not going to listen to you." Sarah stood in the doorway, feeling the anger rise up her spine. Everyone, her husband, her mother-in-law, these guests who were practically strangers. They had all gathered to mock her success, to question her abilities. "I believe any employee obeys the head of HR," she smiled with a cold politeness, "especially if they do not want disciplinary problems. By the way, Ben, you also have a warning for an unexcused absence last month, do you not?" The smile vanished from the man's face. He looked at Ryan, bewildered. How did she know? "Employee files," Sarah shrugged. I reviewed them today. Very educational. A tense silence fell over the living room. Lucy nervously fixed her hair. Patricia pursed her lips, and Ryan glared at his wife with barely contained irritation. I need to change. Sarah nodded to the guests. Have a good evening. She turned and walked away, feeling their eyes drilling into her back. In the bedroom, she calmly took off her suit, hung it carefully in the closet, and put on sweatpants and a t-shirt. There was no more laughter in the living room, only hushed voices. Her presence and the mention of the files had completely killed the mood. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she thought about it. All day she had been processing Ryan's penalties. He had never mentioned them. He always portrayed himself as essential, valuable, and in reality, he was on the verge of being fired. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she said calmly. Ryan entered almost on tiptoes and closed the door behind him. His face showed a mix of irritation and insecurity. Why did you make our guests look bad? He reproached her. As always. Ben almost left. I barely convinced him to stay. I did not make anyone look bad. She looked him straight in the eyes. I just mentioned a fact that I now know because of my position. Speaking of facts, why did you never tell me you were having problems at work? Ryan froze, surprised. What problems? Nonsense. 4 warnings and 3 observations in 6 months? Is nonsense? Sarah stood up, facing him. That is grounds for immediate termination. You knew that. Evelyn always covered for me, he muttered, avoiding her gaze. I was just late a few times. Not a big deal. And not just tardiness. Sarah walked over to the window, looking out at the dark courtyard. Why did you keep it a secret? I am your wife. We could have figured it out together. How? Ryan fired up. You were going to tell me how to behave, or you were going to run and beg the boss for me? No thanks. I handle my own business. And what changes now? She asked quietly, but firmly. Now I am part of management. I sign off on all HR decisions. Ryan glared at her with open rage. And what is your point? You think just because they gave you a title, you are going to boss me around at work and at home? I do not want to boss anyone around, Sarah replied wearily. I just want you to understand that I have an important job now, and I need support, not mockery. Who is mocking you? Ryan feigned surprise. We were just joking around a bit, and you go threatening Ben with write-ups. You think that is normal? Normal. Sarah pressed her lips together. You mean the fact that you, Ben, and your mother treat my job like a joke? That you throw a party supposedly for my promotion, but really just to make fun of me? That you hide work problems as if we are not a team? Yes, very normal. Ryan clenched his fists, holding himself back. So that is how it is, he mumbled. One day sitting in the big chair, and I do not even recognize you. Now you are going to spy on me with my file. I am not spying on you, Sarah denied. I want to know the truth. Why did you not tell me you were about to be fired? Why hide it? That is none of your business, Ryan roared. I am a man. I handle my own problems. He turned around and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Sarah slowly sat down on the bed. Part of her was still hoping that Ryan would come to his senses, that he would understand the importance of her professional advancement, that he would want to save their marriage. But it was clear, he did not see her as a partner. He saw her as a subordinate, at home and at work. From the living room came the voices of people saying goodbye. Then the front door closed. A little while later, she heard Ryan and Patricia talking in the hallway. It went straight to her head. All because of that job. A woman should be at home, not playing boss. Whatever, Mom. Ryan sounded conciliatory. Let her have fun for a few days, thinking she is important. It will not last long. What if she fires you? Patricia's voice trembled with fear. She has power now. She will not do it, Ryan replied, with arrogant confidence. I am her husband. Where is she going to go without me? Sarah clenched her fists, her nails digging into her skin. Where is she going to go? That phrase echoed in her head like a verdict. He believed she would never have the courage to leave, that she was trapped with him and his mother, condemned to humiliation and contempt. That was when she realized it. She was never going to put up with it again. She took out her cell phone and texted the director. "Mr. Mitchell, can we meet first thing tomorrow morning? I need to discuss a serious HR matter." She sent the message. She leaned back against the pillow with a calm she had not felt in months. The decision was made. There was no turning back. The next morning, Sarah woke up earlier than usual. Clarity had replaced sleep. She got up quietly so as not to wake Ryan, who was snoring diagonally across the bed. In the living room and kitchen, there were remnants of the party: dirty plates, empty bottles, leftovers. Patricia, as always, had not cleaned a thing, but this time, Sarah felt no anger, only a peaceful clarity. That mess was an exact reflection of her family life: contempt, thoughtlessness, lack of care. She took a shower, chose her most formal suit, dark navy blue with an impeccable white blouse, and applied flawless makeup. Today, she had to be unassailable. Her phone vibrated. "I will be in at 8 o'clock. Come by my office," the director replied. Getting ready to leave, she opened the empty fridge, just as she expected. She made some strong coffee, turned on her laptop, and prepared for the meeting. She reviewed Ryan's file one more time. In addition to the warnings, she saw complaints for rudeness, safety violations, and even reports for showing up hungover. He was genuinely on the verge of termination. Only Evelyn's pity for their marriage had saved him until now. Just as she was leaving so early, Patricia's voice cut through the silence. The woman appeared with her hands on her hips in a floral robe. "And what about breakfast for my son? He is going to a construction site, not some warm office." Sarah finished her coffee and closed her laptop. "Good morning, Patricia. Yes, I am heading to work. I have a meeting with the director at 8 o'clock. "As if the president called you," the mother-in-law snorted. "And what about Ryan?" "Ryan is a grown man." Sarah stood up and began washing her mug. "He can make his own breakfast. Besides, he has you, his deeply concerned mother." Patricia took a deep breath, ready to launch into an indignant speech, but Sarah raised her hand, stopping her. "I am sorry. I cannot stay and chat. I am in a rush." Before Patricia could find a comeback, Sarah was already putting on her jacket. As she walked out, she heard the muttering. "She has become unbearable." It all went to her head. She is going to make Ryan's life miserable. But for the first time in a long time, those words did not trigger any guilt or urge to justify herself. The office was still mostly empty. Only a cleaning lady was wiping down the glass, and the security guard greeted her with a sleepy nod. The light in the director's waiting area was already on. Mr. Mitchell was known for always arriving before anyone else. Sarah knocked on the door, and upon hearing "come in," she opened it. "Good morning, Sarah." The director looked up. "Have a seat. What was the urgency?" She sat across from him, resting the folder on her lap. "Mr. Mitchell, thank you for seeing me. As the new head of HR, I want to discuss some personnel issues." The director leaned back in his chair, watching her with interest. Gray hair at his temples, a firm gaze, a commanding presence. "Evelyn explained everything to you. What concerns have come up?" "Yes, she helped me a lot." Sarah opened the folder. "I reviewed the files and found problematic situations that require your authorization." She pulled out the first document, but it was not Ryan's. "Leo Sterling, foreman of Sector 5. In the last year, he has committed 3 severe safety violations. One of them caused an accident in July. An employee ended up in the hospital. We were lucky the family did not sue." The director frowned. "Yes, I remember. Evelyn said she applied a severe penalty." "Correct." Sarah nodded. "But it is his 3rd severe penalty. By law, that is grounds for termination. However, no action was taken." "Sterling is highly experienced," the director started, but Sarah intervened tactfully. "Experienced, yes, but he risks the lives of his workers and the company's reputation. The next accident could cost us millions and trigger a federal investigation." Mr. Mitchell drummed his fingers on the desk, thoughtful. "What do you propose?" "Termination with cause. We have the documentary backup." The director looked at her with surprise. He did not expect such firmness from someone who was just a secretary yesterday. All right, he said finally. Prepare the paperwork. What else? Sarah pulled out another file. Ben Barnes, sub-foreman of Area 2. Repeated absences, several occasions of being under the influence. There are witnesses. It was the same Ben who had mocked her in her own home the night before. Barnes, the director frowned. I do not recall incidents with him. Exactly. Sarah smiled very faintly. The incidents were overlooked. Evelyn, with all due respect, was lenient with certain employees. Are you proposing to fire him too? Mr. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. No. Sarah shook her head. Barnes is technically valuable. I propose transferring him to the technical control department. His experience will be useful there, but without management responsibilities, and, of course, with a demotion and a salary reduction. The director nodded slowly, reviewing the documents. Sensible. What else is on your list? Sarah took a deep breath. The deciding moment had arrived. Ryan Miller, foreman of Sector 3. Mr. Mitchell looked up. Your husband, if I am not mistaken. Yes, she replied calmly, but I ask you to consider this strictly from a professional standpoint. She handed him the third folder, the thickest one. In the last 6 months, 4 formal warnings, 3 observations, repeated client complaints for rudeness, missed deadlines, lack of quality control, 2 reports for showing up in a condition unfit to work. The director read carefully, looking up from time to time. She remained sitting up straight, serene, with a professional expression. Are you aware that you are proposing to fire your own husband? He asked finally. I am proposing to apply labor laws to an employee with enough violations to justify contract termination, she answered without hesitation. The fact that he is my husband should not interfere with company policy. Mr. Mitchell leaned back in his chair, observing her with renewed interest. You know, Sarah, he said slowly, when Evelyn recommended you for the role, I hesitated. A management position requires firmness, the ability to make unpopular decisions. Not everyone can do it. He paused, evaluating her reaction. But now I see that you are exactly what this company needed. You know how to put the job above personal matters. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Sarah gave a slight smile. I appreciate your trust. Good, he resumed his executive tone. Prepare all the paperwork. Sterling, termination. Barnes, transfer with demotion and pay cut. And regarding your husband, he made a deliberate pause, offering her a chance to back down. For Miller, prepare the termination papers too, but first, hold a formal interview with him as head of HR. If you want to give him one last chance, that is within your rights. Family matters are always delicate. Sarah nodded, putting the documents away. I will handle it today. If you allow me, I have a separate request. I am listening. The director tilted his head. With my salary change, I would like to request a proof of income statement for the bank. We are paying off a mortgage, and I plan to make an early payment to cover my share. Of course, Mr. Mitchell pressed the intercom. Amanda, prepare an income statement for Sarah. Priority. After the meeting, Sarah headed to her new office. On the door hung a sign reading Head of Human Resources, though her name had not been updated yet. Evelyn was there, organizing files. Ah, finally, the veteran exclaimed. I thought you were going to be late on your first day. I was with the director. Sarah placed her bag on the desk. We discussed pending issues. Evelyn watched her with curiosity. I see you are starting strong. And what did you guys decide? Sarah laid out the decisions. Sterling's termination, Barnes's relocation, and Ryan's disciplinary procedure. Evelyn whistled, impressed. Wow. You did not even take pity on your own husband. That is tough. Pity? Sarah looked up. I just applied the rules. Being married to someone who breaks the rules does not give them the right to bypass the regulations. Evelyn scratched her chin thoughtfully. I always thought you were quiet, that Ryan was the one who ran things in your house. But it turns out, you have a backbone. Everyone has a limit, Sarah said slowly. I have reached mine. The veteran nodded in understanding. All right, what is next? Preparing the paperwork. Sarah took a deep breath. By lunchtime, everything was ready. Sterling received his termination notice. Barnes got his demotion transfer. Only Ryan was left. Do you want to call him at home? Evelyn suggested. No. This is a formal interview. Schedule him for 3 o'clock. At the appointed time, there was a knock on the door. Come in, Sarah said, sitting with authority. Ryan walked in, tense, not expecting to see her there. Good afternoon, Mr. Miller, she announced in an official tone. Take a seat. I am Sarah, the new head of HR. This is a disciplinary meeting. Ryan blinked in confusion. What kind of circus is this, Sarah? What is wrong with you? First, in a professional setting, you will address me appropriately, she corrected him firmly. Second, this is not a circus. It is an official procedure. Take a seat. He sat down reluctantly. Sarah began reading the file. 4 penalties, 3 formal warnings, 2 reports of arriving in an inappropriate condition, 3 client complaints for mistreatment, multiple safety violations. All right, you are exaggerating, he tried to intervene. She continued without flinching. Ryan looked at Evelyn as if seeking help. You always understood me. She manages the department now, Evelyn replied, remaining silent. Sarah resumed taking control. My job is to enforce company policy, even if I am your husband. Precisely because of that, you will receive one final chance. She slid a document across the desk toward him. A formal notice of potential termination. 1 month of probation. 1 more violation, and we will proceed with your dismissal. Read and sign. Ryan stared at the paper as if it were burning. You think I am going to sign this garbage? If you do not sign, we will file a report, and the termination will be immediate. You would not dare. I am your husband. I pay for that house. Evelyn stepped in, looking stern. Mr. Miller, watch your tone. Every thread is being recorded. Ryan breathed heavily with contained fury. Then he grabbed the pen and slammed his signature onto the paper. There you go. Happy? We will talk at home tonight, Sarah stated, now speaking as a wife, but also as an employee. You may leave now. Ryan stood up abruptly and stormed out, slamming the door. Evelyn let out a whistle. What a temper, Sarah. I never would have guessed. Thank you, she smiled wearily. Evelyn, could I leave a little early today? I need to stop by the bank. Of course, the veteran nodded. After that meeting, you need to breathe. Go. I will finish the paperwork. Sarah spent almost 2 hours at the bank, first waiting for the loan officer, then filling out paperwork to make an early payment on the mortgage. The proof of income with her new salary made everything easier. The bank gladly approved the transaction after seeing her financial capacity had increased significantly. All right, Sarah, the officer explained, pointing at the screen. You are listed as the primary borrower and your husband as the co-borrower. With this early payment of your share, the property remains as collateral, but ownership shifts to be proportional to financial contribution. Meaning the apartment would be practically in my name, Sarah clarified. To a large extent, yes, he confirmed. You made the down payment and have covered the majority of the loan. Your husband would keep his percentage in the event of a sale. Sarah signed all the documents and transferred the money. One more task completed. After that, she went to a legal clinic. There, she consulted about the possibility of a divorce, division of assets, and drafted the petition. The lawyer, a young, serious woman with empathetic eyes, listened carefully before speaking. Given that you have paid the majority of the loan and your husband has an irregular income, plus a disciplinary record at work, the judge will most likely award the apartment to you, she explained. Especially if you request exclusive residency during the divorce process. And his mother? Sarah asked. She is not registered there, but she has been living with us for 6 months. If she is not on the lease and does not own part of the home, she has no legal right to stay, the lawyer replied, taking notes. We will have everything ready by Monday. It was almost nightfall when Sarah returned. She had purposely taken her time to gather her thoughts. As she walked in, she heard loud voices from the living room. Ryan and Patricia were not hiding their frustration. She humiliated me in front of the whole office, Ryan roared like a rookie. She made me sign that awful paper. My own wife. I warned you, Patricia replied. That management job went straight to her head. A woman should not have power. It ruins everything. Look at her now. Sarah walked in without taking off her blazer. Ryan spun around sharply, his face flushed with rage. Ah, there she is. He stepped toward her. Now explain what that circus was today. It was not a circus, she replied in a calm voice. It was a disciplinary meeting with a repeatedly non-compliant employee. If you respected me as a professional, it would not have been necessary. Professional? You? Ryan let out a bitter laugh. You got that job by pure luck because they had no one else to put there. You know that is not true, Sarah said without getting upset. I was promoted based on competence and responsibility, two things you lack, Ryan. And on top of that, you insult me. He closed the distance between them. Sarah could smell the beer. He had been drinking heavily. I am going to. You really should not try it, she cut him off, taking out her phone. I remind you there are cameras in the house. Any aggression will be recorded and will serve as legal grounds for a restraining order. Ryan stopped in his tracks, his hand frozen midair. You are threatening me in my own house? He whispered, trembling with anger. In our home, she corrected him calmly. Although, as of today, it is more mine than yours. I have paid off my share of the mortgage. Entirely. What do you mean you paid it off? Patricia interjected with a gasp. Where did you get the money for that? I received a generous advance for my new role. Sarah shrugged. And I, unlike some people, do not spend my paycheck on beer and barbecues. And you did not think to consult me? Ryan crossed his arms. I pay for this apartment too. You contributed about 20% of the monthly payment, Sarah replied calmly. And irregularly. I have all the receipts. In court, that will matter. Court? Patricia jumped up. What are you insinuating, girl? Sarah inhaled slowly. It was time to show her cards. I am not insinuating anything. I am speaking clearly. I am filing for divorce. The papers will be ready on Monday. Considering I am the primary borrower and have covered the majority of the mortgage, it is highly likely the property will be awarded to me. Silence fell like a heavy blow. Ryan and Patricia stood frozen, wearing the exact same look of disbelief. You cannot, Ryan muttered. We are a family. Family, Sarah offered a sad smile. A family supports each other. They celebrate each other's success. They do not mock, belittle, or humiliate. What we have had these past years, especially since your mother moved in, is not a family. It is a toxic bond where I was always the intruder. How dare you? Patricia waved her hands. We welcomed you into our home, and you did not welcome me. Sarah cut her off firmly. You tolerated me as long as I paid bills, cooked, and endured humiliation. But when I finally moved up, you responded with mockery. That was my limit. She pulled another document from her bag and set it on the table. This is an eviction notice for you, Patricia. You own a home in Clearwater. You are registered there. I ask that you vacate my property within 3 days. You are not kicking my mother out, Ryan roared. I will not allow it. I am not kicking her out, Sarah said serenely. I am just asking her to go back to her own house. And you will have to leave soon too. After the divorce, you will need another place to live. I am not leaving. Ryan slammed his fist on the table. This apartment is also mine. We can settle it in court. Sarah shrugged. It would be better to resolve it peacefully. You already have enough problems at work without adding a lawsuit. She turned to walk away, but Ryan grabbed her arm. You are not leaving until we are done. Sarah looked down at her wrist, tightly gripped in his fingers. Let go, she said in a low, sharp voice. Or, I will call the police. Something in her tone stopped him. Ryan stepped back, looking at her as if she were a stranger. You are going to regret this, he spat. I swear to you. I doubt it, she replied, heading to the bedroom. I will sleep here tonight. Tomorrow, I am moving to a hotel until the process is finalized. And let me warn you, she turned back to both of them. Any attempt at intimidation or damage will only worsen your legal situation. She shut the door, leaving behind the stunned silence of the living room. She sat on the bed. Her hands were shaking. The confrontation had been harsh, but something warm and new was growing inside her. Freedom. For the first time in years, she was acting on her own terms, not out of fear. She grabbed her phone and dialed. Evelyn, I am sorry to call so late. I need a favor. Yes, a personal one. Could you recommend an affordable hotel near the office? I need to stay there for a few days. After hearing the response, she smiled. Thank you so much. I knew I could count on you. She hung up and began packing a small suitcase. On the other side of the door, she could hear muffled voices, but she no longer cared. Her choice was made. The next morning began with loud banging on the bedroom door. Sarah woke up disoriented. Her sleep had been heavy, full of tension. Another knock and Patricia's voice broke into reality. Open up right now. We need to talk. Sarah looked at the clock. 6 a.m, Saturday. The day she planned to finish packing and move to the hotel Evelyn recommended. I know you are awake, Patricia insisted. Open the door or Ryan will break it down. Sarah took a deep breath and got out of bed. She knew prolonging the conflict was pointless. Luckily, the bedroom door locked from the inside, one of the few things she had insisted on when they moved in. I will be out in 5 minutes, she answered calmly, putting on her robe. She heard Ryan grunt something inaudible behind the door. Sarah washed her face, brushed her hair, and tied it back in a neat bun. Appearances matter, she thought. She needed to look confident, not vulnerable. When she opened the door, she found a family committee. A exhausted-looking Ryan, Patricia in a combative stance, and, to her surprise, Ryan's younger brother, Jason. She had only seen Jason twice before. What is going on? She asked, crossing her arms. Why the family meeting at 6 a.m? We need to have a serious talk. Ryan sounded strangely sober and determined. We have thought about all of this, and we concluded that you are acting impulsively. Impulsively? Sarah gave a brief smile. I have planned every step precisely. It is because of that damn job, Patricia insisted. It went straight to your head. You used to be a normal woman, and now I just stopped putting up with humiliation. Sarah cut her off calmly. If you think that is abnormal, I prefer to stay that way. Then she looked at Jason. And what are you doing here? The young man, skinny with glasses and mild manners, the complete opposite of Ryan, hesitated for a moment. They called me last night, he said quietly. They said you had lost your mind, that you wanted to kick them out, leave them homeless. And so you drove from the city at 6 a.m? Sarah shook her head gently. Jason, do you not see they are using you to pressure me? He opened his mouth to speak, but Ryan interrupted instantly. Jason is a paralegal, in case you forgot, he said triumphantly, and he will explain to you why your plan with the house is not going to work. Sarah stared at him. Jason was barely a legal assistant, but they clearly wanted to use him as an expert. Perfect. She pointed toward the living room. Let us talk civilly. The living room was a disaster area. Empty bottles, cigarette butts overflowing from an ashtray. Even though smoking inside was forbidden, clothes were thrown everywhere. It was obvious evidence of Ryan and Patricia's strategic late-night planning. Sarah sat in an armchair, while they took the sofa across from her. The atmosphere felt more like a negotiation than a family chat. Jason opened his briefcase and laid some documents on the coffee table. All right, he started. Ryan explained that you want to get divorced and keep the apartment. Correct, Sarah affirmed. But the apartment was purchased during the marriage. He adjusted his glasses. That makes it marital property, to be divided equally. Sarah opened her folder. Not entirely. The judge evaluates who actually contributed. Here are the payment receipts. My contribution is over 80% of the total value. I also paid off the remainder of my share yesterday. Jason reviewed the papers, frowning. Even so, he insisted, Ryan has the right to remain in the property until the divorce is finalized. I already requested temporary exclusive residency, Sarah said serenely. I have a stable income, a permanent job, and I am the primary payer. The judge will almost certainly approve my request. Lie! Patricia exploded. The law cannot be so much on her side. Jason swallowed hard, and without looking at his mother, he mumbled. Actually, It can. If everything is as she says, she has the legal advantage. Patricia put her hand over her heart indignantly. And what about me? I live here. Where am I supposed to go? You have your own apartment in Clearwater, Sarah reminded her, without getting upset. It is your property, and you are listed as the owner. She cannot live there, Ryan argued indignantly. That place is a disaster. It needs a total remodel. A remodel that you guys have not done in 5 years, Sarah replied calmly. You preferred to live off of me. You must agree that is not my problem. Ryan stood up abruptly, red with fury. How dare you? After everything I have done for you. What exactly is it that you did? She countered with absolute calm. Come on, tell Jason how you congratulated me on my promotion, how you celebrated my success, or maybe how you and your mother devoured all the delicacies I bought to celebrate without even inviting me to sit at the table. Jason's eyes darted between them, clearly confused. Hold on, I do not understand. What promotion? What delicacies? Your sister-in-law is a big boss now, Patricia spat venomously. Human Resources Director. She thinks she is so important that she does not even recognize her own family anymore. Congratulations, Jason said sincerely, looking at Sarah. That is great news. Why did you guys not celebrate? Because your brother and your mother believe a woman cannot be a leader, Sarah replied with a shrug. And instead of support, I got mocked. Jason frowned, processing the information. Ryan, is that true? He asked, turning to him. Oh, enough. Ryan made a dismissive gesture. They were jokes. She got offended over nothing, like she is the Queen of England. And it is not just the promotion, Sarah continued. I have been putting up with contempt, disrespect, and humiliation for years. Ever since your mom moved in, it got worse. But what broke the camel's back was seeing that my professional progress did not make you proud. It made you angry and mocking. The silence grew heavy. Jason looked uncomfortable. Ryan frowned, and Patricia's lips were tight, ready to burst. And what about the job? Jason finally asked. Ryan says you want to use your position to fire him. Not to fire him, but to hold him accountable for his actual violations. Sarah pulled out another folder. Here is his record. 4 formal penalties, 3 warnings, twice showing up drunk, conflicts with clients. Legally speaking, it is enough to terminate his contract. Jason took the folder and reviewed it. Ryan looked down. Are these violations real? Jason asked, looking up. Bah! Ryan exploded. I was just late a couple of times, and yeah, I had a drink after work. Are you going to crucify me for that? You are not only risking your job, Sarah said softly, but the company's reputation. I gave you 1 final month of probation. That is more than the law guarantees. And that is how you show gratitude, Patricia shrieked. He gave you a home. He supported you all these years. Sarah let out a tired sigh. First, he did not support me. We were a family, or so I thought we were. Second, I have always worked and contributed more to the budget than Ryan did. She then looked straight at Jason. You know perfectly well they did not call you for your legal expertise. They wanted to use your presence to pressure me, to make me cave. But my decision is final. I am getting a divorce. I want a life without humiliation and contempt. Jason watched her for a long time, as if weighing something. I understand, he finally said, and honestly, I do not blame you. Ryan glared at his brother. You messed up big time. And Mom too. Whose side are you on? Patricia erupted. Your duty is to defend this family. I am defending it, Jason answered calmly, but you are not in the right. Sarah has every right to divorce and claim the majority of the apartment based on her contribution. Traitor, Ryan growled. Selling out your own brother. I am not selling anyone out. Jason frowned. I am just telling the truth. If you had come to me earlier, maybe I could have mediated. But now... He threw his hands up, not knowing what else to say. Ryan stood up suddenly and marched to the door. To hell with all of you, he spat. Ben was right. Women only want money and to cause problems. The front door slammed shut. Patricia remained on the sofa, her lips pressed tight, staring at Sarah with open hatred. Happy? she hissed. You destroyed a family. You destroyed it yourselves, Sarah replied calmly. With your contempt, your meddling, your constant attacks. You turned Ryan against me from day one. Then she looked at Jason. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it. He nodded awkwardly. Sorry for showing up out of nowhere. They called me in the middle of the night saying it was an emergency, that you were throwing them out on the street. It was an emergency, Sarah smiled faintly. The emergency of reclaiming my dignity and my life. Patricia jumped up from the sofa. I am not going to sit here and listen to you two congratulate each other. She shot Sarah a venomous look. But let me be clear. I will not give up. This apartment belongs to my son. She marched off, slamming the door to the room she occupied. Jason gathered his papers uncomfortably. I think I should get going too, he murmured. My bus leaves in 2 hours. Of course. Sarah nodded. Thank you for coming, and I am sorry for this whole spectacle. He paused for a moment at the door. I always thought you guys had a perfect marriage, he said quietly. Ryan always bragged about having an incredible wife. He said he was lucky. Really? Sarah raised her eyebrows. He told me the exact opposite. Jason sighed. My brother is complicated. He never appreciates what he has. It is never enough, and Mom just makes it worse. I noticed, she replied with a sad smile. I was hoping for a real family too. I know, he said. Good luck, Sarah, and genuinely, congratulations on your promotion. When the door closed behind him, Sarah felt a sense of relief. It was tough, but liberating. She had finally said everything she had kept quiet about for years. Ryan returned several hours later. By then, most of Sarah's belongings were already packed. He was drunk, with swollen eyes. He had probably stopped by a friend's house to drink and complain. Are you leaving? He mumbled, leaning against the doorframe. Where to? To a hotel while the divorce goes through, she answered without raising her voice. Then I will come back here. And you are going to kick us out? There was more pain than anger in his tone. I am not kicking anyone out. She closed her suitcase. Your mother has her own home. It is logical for her to return there. And you will have to find another place after the ruling. Ryan looked at her with cloudy eyes. I really did love you, he suddenly said. I truly loved you. I loved you too, Sarah admitted. But love is not just a feeling. It is also respect, support, care. None of that is left between us. Maybe we can fix it. His voice trembled with a plea. I can change. I swear to you, Mom will go back to Clearwater. We can live peacefully, just the two of us. Sarah gently shook her head. No, Ryan, it is too late. The decision is made. She grabbed her suitcase and headed for the door. Ryan tried to stop her, stumbling. You cannot just leave like this. It is our house, our life. I am not leaving forever, Sarah explained calmly. I will be back when the judge authorizes my residency here during the divorce process. Right now, I just want to avoid more fighting. Ryan stood still, staring at her in bewilderment. For a moment, something resembling understanding flashed in his eyes. Perhaps for the first time, he did not see a submissive wife, but a firm woman, sure of what she wanted. Then I will leave too, he suddenly said. I will stay with Ben for a while. There is no point in all of us staying here cramped together. Sarah raised her eyebrows slightly, surprised. Thank you, she answered sincerely. That is a reasonable decision. And my mom? Ryan rubbed his forehead. She is more difficult. She is very stubborn. Sarah smiled faintly. I know, but she has her own home. Sooner or later she will have to go back. I will talk to her, he muttered, when I sober up. Sarah nodded. That conversation had unexpectedly not ended in shouting. Perhaps he finally grasped the gravity of the situation. Or maybe Jason's words had made an impact. Goodbye, she said, grabbing the door handle. See you later, he corrected her bitterly. We will see each other at the office or in court. See you later, Sarah replied, stepping out and closing the door softly. The following week passed in a blur. During the day, Sarah immersed herself in work, learning the tasks of her new role. At night, she returned to an impersonal hotel room. At work, Ryan was strictly professional. He said hello, turned in reports on time, and did not even arrive late. Employees whispered behind their backs, but no one dared to comment out loud. On Wednesday, the court order arrived. Her request to reside in the apartment during the process was granted. Ryan, as expected, had already moved in with his friend. Patricia, however, flatly refused to leave, insisting on her right to live with her son. On Friday, after the workday, Sarah met with a court officer, and together they headed to the apartment. To her surprise, Patricia opened the door immediately, as if she had been waiting for them. "You actually came," she said venomously. "I never thought you would go this far." "Ma'am," the officer spoke in a professional tone, "I am authorized to serve you the resolution granting Miss Sarah the temporary right of residency until the divorce is finalized." He extended the document. Patricia did not even look at it. "I am not leaving here," she declared with crossed arms. "This apartment belongs to my son. According to the order, you must vacate the premises within 24 hours, the official continued calmly. Otherwise, forced eviction measures will be applied." "What measures?" Patricia shrieked. "Are you going to drag me out?" "I am an elderly woman. If necessary, a report of non-compliance will be filed, and police presence will be requested," he explained without getting upset. "We trust it will not come to that." Sarah watched in silence. None of this was pleasant for her, but she was clear that she was not backing down. "Patricia," she said softly when the woman finally took the paper, "you have your own home. Why create more conflict? Ryan already left. He is living with a friend." "My son left?" Patricia stood speechless with shock. "He did not tell me anything." "He moved out on Saturday," Sarah replied with a slight shrug. "He did not let you know?" The woman looked at her with a mix of confusion, anger, and hurt. "Traitor," she spat. "All of you are traitors. You have conspired against a poor old woman." "Nobody conspired," Sarah answered wearily. "Things just ended up this way. You have until tomorrow to pack." "And if I refuse?" Patricia challenged. "Then on Monday I will return with the police and an order for forced eviction," the officer said firmly. "Believe me, it is not in your best interest. It is better to leave voluntarily." Patricia shot them a look full of hatred, turned around, and disappeared into her room, slamming the door so hard it echoed throughout the apartment. "She is stubborn," Sarah said quietly to the officer. "I am afraid we will have to come back with the police." "It is possible," he admitted. "But often people calm down and accept the inevitable. Call me if there are complications." After he left, Sarah walked around the apartment. To her surprise, everything was quite tidy. It seemed Patricia maintained the cleanliness while she was not there. In the bedroom, she found her clothes folded in stacks with unexpected precision. What she had not been able to take to the hotel was right there, silently waiting for her. The mother-in-law's bedroom door remained closed, and behind it, a murmur could be heard. She was probably talking on the phone. Sarah did not bother to listen. She went to the kitchen and made dinner. The night passed in a thick silence. Patricia did not come out to eat. Sarah did not insist either. She showered, put on her pajamas, and got into bed with a book. A lot of work awaited her the next day. She had to finalize the restructuring documents for the department by Monday. The next morning, a commotion at the entrance woke her up. Peeking out, she saw Ryan carrying suitcases. "Good morning," Sarah said, surprised. Ryan nodded without looking at her. "I am taking my mother," he announced dryly. "She will live with me until we fix up her place." "With you?" Sarah repeated. "But you were staying with Ben." "I rented a studio," he replied, shrugging. "I was not going to sleep on someone else's couch forever." "I understand," she said after a pause. "It is the most sensible thing to do." Patricia walked out with the last bag. Seeing Sarah, she dramatically turned her face away. "Let us go, son," she said. "We have nothing to do here." Ryan picked up the suitcases and headed for the door. Before leaving, he turned around. "Did you file the petition yet?" "Yes," Sarah confirmed. "The first hearing is on Monday." "I will be there," he murmured. "Goodbye." Patricia walked past without even looking at her. When the door closed, the apartment was plunged into a silence that Sarah had almost forgotten how it sounded. For the first time in many months, she was alone in her own home. She walked through the rooms slowly, as if seeing them for the first time. Without Patricia's things, the guest room looked spacious. Without Ryan's items scattered around, the living room breathed light. She opened the windows, and a fresh breeze flooded the house. She smiled. Her new life had begun. The divorce was faster than expected. Ryan did not contest the division. He accepted a financial settlement instead of a share of the apartment. Maybe Jason had influenced him, or maybe he himself was tired of fighting. At work, Sarah thrived. The HR position was exactly what she had always wanted. Complex, demanding, with a real impact on people's lives. The director congratulated her more than once. 6 months later, she was named Deputy Director of Personnel with a significant salary increase. Ryan remained at the company. To everyone's surprise, his behavior changed. He did not arrive late, he did not argue, and he followed the rules. Sarah checked his file periodically. There were no new penalties. Sometimes they bumped into each other in meetings or hallways. He would greet her with restrained politeness. She replied with the same neutrality. She heard through acquaintances that Patricia had returned to Clearwater. With the help of Ryan and some friends, she remodeled her place and now proudly hosted visitors. Although she always added the same complaint about the ungrateful daughter-in-law who had ruined her son, Sarah paid no mind to it. She had finally found what she was looking for: respect, stability, a quiet home. She redecorated the apartment in her own style, bright and airy. One afternoon, almost a year after the divorce, while returning from work, she saw a familiar figure by the building entrance. Ryan was waiting for her nervously. "Hi," he said when she approached. "Can we talk?" Sarah observed him. He had changed. Thinner, with a calmer gaze, and well-groomed clothes. "Sure," she pointed to a bench in front of the building. "Let us sit down." They did so, leaving a space between them. Ryan stayed silent for a long while before speaking. "I wanted to apologize," he finally said. "For everything, for how I treated you, for my mother, for my behavior, for not valuing you." Sarah raised her eyebrows, surprised. "I did not expect to hear something like that." "What happened?" she asked. "Why now?" Ryan gave a sad smile. "Jason forced me to go to a therapist," he confessed. "He said I had ruined my relationship with the best woman I could have ever met and that I needed help. And, you know what? He was right." He played with a lighter, like he used to do when he was nervous. "I have realized a lot of things this year. About myself, about my mom, about us. I was toxic, ungrateful. I did not know how to value what I had." "That is true," Sarah admitted quietly, "but I am glad you realized it. I am not asking for a second chance," he added quickly. "I know everything is over. I just wanted you to know that I was wrong, and I am truly sorry." Sarah looked at the evening sky with a newfound serenity. A year ago, those words might have changed her life. But now, "Thank you," she answered honestly. "Your apologies mean a lot. I am glad you are working on yourself." "I got a job offer recently," Ryan said with a gleam in his eye. "In the city, a large construction company, a good project. I decided to try something new." "Congratulations," she smiled. "That is a great opportunity." "Yes," he murmured after a silence. "Mom is moving too. She says the big city will be good for her. Jason will help her with an apartment." "I think that is the right move," Sarah nodded. "A fresh start for both of you." They stayed quiet for a bit longer, looking at the darkening sky. Then Ryan stood up. "I am heading out," he said. "Thank you for listening to me. And good luck. You deserve the best." Sarah also stood up. "And you too, Ryan. I hope you find your happiness." He extended his hand. Sarah shook it. A polite, definitive gesture. Then Ryan walked away toward the bus stop, and she walked into her building. Climbing the stairs, she thought about how strange fate can be sometimes. How often we confuse disdain with love, mockery with a joke, humiliation with care, and how important it is to realize in time that we deserve better. The apartment was warm and quiet. She took off her coat and went to the kitchen. Tomorrow was going to be an important day. A meeting with the director, presenting the new HR policy program. Her project, her work, her merit. She walked over to the window and saw Ryan's figure disappearing down the street. And she felt no hate or resentment, only peace and a slight nostalgia for what could have been if he had understood sooner. But life does not deal in what-ifs, and Sarah was grateful for the journey. As hard as it had been, it taught her to value herself, to set boundaries, to not fear change, to understand that no love is worth more than dignity. The phone rang, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Evelyn, retired but always checking in. "How are things, Sarah? They told me you are presenting the new personnel development plan tomorrow. I am keeping my fingers crossed for you." "Thank you," Sarah smiled. "Everything is ready. I think the director will like it." "Of course he will like it," the woman laughed. "You are his right hand. Do you remember how scared you were on that very first day? And look at you now, deputy director. I always knew you would go far." They talked for a long time about work, plans, and life. Afterward, Sarah made coffee, opened her laptop, and reviewed her presentation one last time. The evening lights shone through the glass. A new chapter was beginning, with her own goals, and with the strength that comes from self-love. Sometimes you have to lose to win, and true strength does not lie in enduring, but in daring to change. That night, she slept peacefully. At dawn, as she dressed for the important meeting, she caught her reflection and smiled. In her eyes there was no fear or doubt, only the confidence of a woman who had finally chosen herself.